And welcome to the 2025 season preview for the Atlanta Braves. My name is Michael here at the Upside Sports Network. Appreciate you guys joining us late on a Wednesday night. I know we've done quite a few of these season preview videos already. We will try to wrap these up by the weekend. So those of you looking forward to some of the teams we haven't done already, be prepared. We're going to try to finish a couple a day until we get to the weekend. Then we'll finish off the rest of them. Probably do 4 on Saturday and 4 on Sunday to finish off the rest of Major League Baseball. So several of the teams we've already done. You can check those out on our page. Be sure to hit the like and subscribe on those videos. It does mean a lot to us. Interact. We do read those messages, so I just want to thank you guys for joining us. Holly, welcome in. I know you've been with us for pretty much every single one of these, so I appreciate you continuing to check out the content. Really do appreciate you. But the Atlanta Braves for 2024 were still a pretty solid team. They had a bad rash of injury luck, of course, with Spencer Strider and with Ronald Acuna Jr., both being lost for the season. This year, both are going to get slow starts to the season. They did bring in Jurickson Profar as well, but a lot is going to be riding on the returns of those two players as to how successful the Atlanta Braves are. So without further ado, let's begin the 2025 season preview for the Atlanta Braves. Now, the Atlanta Braves were, like I said, were a pretty solid team last year. Ultimately, things didn't work out as well as they had hoped. They did finish in the wild card positioning here. So the Atlanta Braves finished in that second wild card spot with 89 wins, 73 losses overall. Kind of tied with the three teams there, along with the Arizona Diamondbacks, them having the tiebreaker over the Diamondbacks to get that spot and over the Mets. Overall, a successful season considering the loss of Spencer Strider and the loss of Ronald Acuna Jr. Now, of course, things could have gone, or really went well for Chris Sale, who they did bring in from the Boston Red Sox, he recaptured his youth in what could have been his final season. He wins the NL Cy Young Award. So if they didn't have that performance from Chris Sale, this is a team that would not have been a playoff team. They probably would have lost a good 3 to 5 more games just based off of his performance. They also had a great year out of Ozuna as well. He finished 4th in the NL MVP voting. Chris Sale finished 7th in the NL MVP voting, and that's in a year where 2 major cogs of this lineup are out of action. So kind of keep those thoughts in mind as we go through the 2025 season preview here for the Atlanta Braves. While they did have some really great performances, they were also missing some really key cogs in there, and how reliant are they going to be on some of those key cogs this year? How much depth do they have to overcome any injury issues that may come up this year? Of course, they lost Max Fried in free agency to the New York Yankees. We'll have to see how their rotation ultimately stacks out. Content has been so good. Thank you, Holly. Appreciate that. Astros might be on the verge of DU. I meant a surprise team in the American League. I wouldn't consider the Astros a surprise team. I think they're a contending team. I don't think of them as a World Series contender, but I certainly think of them as a division, contending team, a team that could make a run for the ALCS. I just think they're going to fall a little bit short, but they're still going to be a very good, highly productive team in the American League. But let's get on to the Atlanta Braves. Now, looking at this roster, like I said, they did bring in Jurickson Profar late in free agency. They didn't have a whole lot of money to spend, and I thought they had 2 main issues. One was figuring out what they're going to do with that third outfielder to begin the season when Acuna is not available. And 2, what are they going to do with that starting staff? So I think they got the perfect piece for that outfield mix with Jurickson Profar, because he can literally be used anywhere in this lineup. So you put him out there every single day in that lineup as your left fielder every single day for the month of April until Acuna is ready to go. Once he's healthy, then your right fielder, Kelenic or Brian De La Cruz, whichever guy wins that platoon, or if they decide to stay with that platoon, ultimately transition over to left field. Then you have Jurickson Profar as a guy who can flit all over the diamond, play a little third, second, shortstop. He can play a little bit of outfield for you, pretty much in all 3 outfield spots. He's at least proficient at all of them. He's also a leadoff hitter, which without Acuna, they really needed as well. And so they got the perfect linchpin for this lineup for them, because I think even without, even if they had Acuna on this roster, I still think they needed a player of his caliber to come in to kind of give them some injury assurance on a lot of different spots. And you also have to look at Orlando Arcia, their shortstop. Did not have a great year last year, only a .5 WAR. They need to get a long-term answer at shortstop after losing Dansby Swanson a few years ago. Arcia had a really great year the first year after Swanson was gone, but last year did not go very well, and I think he might lose his job if he continues down that road. Jurickson Profar might supplant him as the shortstop of this season, and then in free agency, there have been rumblings about Bo Bichette and other shortstops that could be a long-term fit for the Braves. They're a little bit strapped financially, but we'll get into the payroll concerns later. But the Braves are still poised for some success this year. Let's look at their roster. Profar at the top, Riley at third, of course, Matt Olson at first, Marcell Ozuna still at DH, Michael Harris in center, Ozzie Albies also had a little bit of a down year with injuries nagging him last year as your 6th place hitter. Sean Murphy is now the primary catcher on this roster after they decided to get rid of Travis d'Arnaud. He'll be handling the majority of those duties there. They have Jared Kelenic along with a platoon of Brian De La Cruz at right field, at least to begin the year. And then, of course, Orlando Arcia rounding things out at shortstop. For their bench, they did acquire Nick Allen in a trade with the Oakland A's. I do think this is a good depth option if they didn't get Jurickson Profar. This would be kind of a utility player that they could use literally anywhere in that infield. Looks like they're going to go with Chadwick Thromp most likely as their backup catcher, but they do have plenty of options in the minor leagues if those guys are not ready to go. As far as Luke Williams, he's kind of an infield outfielder, multi-positional type of player that they'll be using as well. He was claimed off of waivers from the Dodgers a year ago. So overall, looking at this lineup, I think we're going to get a great year out of Austin Riley. I think offensively, it's tough to replicate with what Marcell Ozuna did, but if there's anybody that can do it and handle it, I think he's got a good shot to do it. They're hoping for a little bit better production out of Austin Riley. Honestly, I think they should be able to get it. He's a player that should be contending for the NL MVP along those lines if the Braves are really going to have a successful year. So overall, this lineup, top to bottom, locked up for the long term, and it looks pretty good. And that's without having Ronald Acuna Jr. in that opening day lineup for them. Remember, they'll probably get him back in May, somewhere in there, but they'll be very patient with him. They won't push him too hard. They want to make sure he's healthy for the stretch run of the season more than anything else. Welcome in, Paranormal. Appreciate you joining us. Any news on New York? How are you? I'm doing pretty good. The Yankees, not too much going on with them. I know they're still looking to figure out what they're going to do with their rotation. They had a prospect go down to the injury about a week ago now, I think. Chase Hampton. He'll be out for the entirety of the season after suffering, I believe, a Tommy John injury is what he's going to have, or Tommy John surgery is what he's going to have. But again, they're still very strapped financially. They're a team that is looking for some rotation depth, which tells me that they are looking to move on from Marcus Stroman if they can find somebody to eat some of that salary there. And I don't think the Yankees really like that he's a soft tosser. John Heyman was kind of mentioning that on Bleacher Report today, that because of that he's not necessarily a hard-throwing pitcher anymore, might be part of the reason why the Yankees have cooled on their expectations for him, both on this team and in that rotation. So if there's somebody that's needing a veteran, experienced starting pitcher that's willing to bite down on that salary, maybe the Yankees will part with enough of a sweetener to get that salary off their books. Welcome in, Hank. Appreciate you joining us. No matter what, there's always an upside, Sports Network. Thank you, my friend. What else is going on in the MLB? Any new injuries, trades, anything big? Nothing big. We're pretty much waiting to see where the final bits of the free agent market really settle down. And then as we get closer to this, start of the season with opening day, that's why I want to get a lot of these team previews done, is because that's when we're going to see the trades really start to get going. When teams realize, hey, I don't have enough starting pitching. Hey, I don't have enough on third base or first base. Maybe Nolan Arenado finally gets moved. There were some discussions today about the Cincinnati Reds looking for some more starting pitching. The Blue Jays are looking for a little bit more starting pitching as well, but most of these teams are looking to do it on a non-roster invitee type of deal, minor league deal with an invite to spring training, and then see if one of those guys can kind of help them out in the beginning parts of the year. Guys that were mentioned as some of the better free agents that are left: Kyle Gibson, Lance Lynn. We're talking about Jose Quintana, players like that could still be available on the free agent market without having to go the trade route for a Dylan Cease or Jordan Montgomery or a Marcus Stroman or any one of those names making a lot more money. Let's see, what else is going on? Let's see. Always rewatching your channel, brother. Love your video. Your channel going to blow up during the regular season, man. Be ready. I hope so. Doing a lot of baseball content, trying to get everybody ready for the start of the season. So I'm hoping a lot of these team preview videos that we've been doing will get a lot of residual views as we gear up for the start of the season. And those that are joining our channel for the first time can check out their favorite team and see that we're not just catering to the big markets. We don't do that here. I like covering the entirety of the sport, all the way from the Chicago White Sox to the Colorado Rockies to the better teams in the league, like the Yankees and Red Sox and Rangers and Astros and Cubs, and then on to the best teams in the league like the Dodgers, etc. There's tiers to this thing, sure, but I still want to give every team their due. And to begin the year, all teams are the same record going into the 2025 season, and each team each fan base at least deserves an update as to where their roster stands and what they can look forward to in 2025. If there's not a lot to look forward to on that roster, I'm going to tell them there's not a lot to look forward to. If there's a lot to look forward to, maybe a real chance at something special this year, I'll tell you that too. So that's why we do these season preview videos for all 30 MLB teams. Looking at the starting rotation for the Atlanta Braves, though, Chris Sale, of course, is going to be their number one starter. Eventually, they will get Spencer Strider back, but he will not be there to start the year. Ronaldo Lopez was a great starter last year, converted from a reliever. He was originally a starting pitcher in the Washington Nationals system, went on to the Chicago White Sox, and now has found his way onto the Atlanta Braves. And they're hoping for a 3-WAR season, according to Fangraphs. They're expecting some regression for him. They're also expecting some from Chris Sale. I'd say both of those are fairly accurate as far as what you could expect from them. They're expecting some really good production. The Atlanta Braves are, out of 3 younger pitchers in that rotation. Ian Anderson, former top prospect, has seen his star, rise and fall both in that Atlanta Braves farm system. They have really high hopes for Grant Holmes in that rotation, and Spencer Schwallenbach as well had a nice year last year for them. Hopefully they can continue that. In the minors, they'll still have guys like Bryce Eldridge that they can call up. But to me, this is a rotation that was screaming for a guy like Nathan Eovaldi. Somebody who could really give them a nice jolt in the arm, just like Chris Sale did last year. I can't expect another, Cy Young level season from Chris Sale. I just can't, not at his age. He's 36 years old. Sure, he might have another, really great season in him of around a 3 ERA. That's what Fangraphs is projecting. But this is a guy who was, on the verge of retirement with the Boston Red Sox that said, I'll play one more year and then I'll hang it up. Well, that final year he decided to play was last year, and he won the Cy Young, extending his career. So we'll see how much more we can expect out of Chris Sale. One of my favorite pitchers when he was with the White Sox. Red Sox had a great start, but then it got real bumpy after he signed that big deal. And then, of course, the Atlanta Braves could not have started any better with adding a Cy Young award to his resume. Could he be a Hall of Famer? I'm not sure. I'd have to look at it a little bit closer, but he could be one of the few pitchers that's going in the big leagues right now that could be a Hall of Famer. We're talking a very short list of guys that are on that list. We're talking Max Scherzer. We're talking Justin Verlander. Maybe Garrett Cole if he continues to throw like he has. Maybe just needs a little bit more longevity there as well. Chris Sale is on that periphery of that conversation as well for guys who could be a Hall of Fame level starting pitcher. Now, looking at that bullpen, now that we've kind of discussed that rotation, how the back end of that is kind of inexperienced anyway. Raisel Iglesias, of course, their closer, really like that option there. Pierce Johnson's been bounced around the league quite a bit over the last few years, but seems to have found a home in Atlanta. Aaron Bummer they acquired for like 6 pieces from the Braves a few years ago, kind of a roster cleaning thing that we saw a couple years ago with the White Sox. And then again, they did the same thing this year with a lot of roster cleaning moves that they did with the Los Angeles Angels and a few other clubs as well. Dylan Lee, Daisabel Hernandez, Angel Perdomo, Buck Farmer is a non-roster invitee they're expecting to make it, and Anderson Pilar, a Rule 5 pick from this winter anyway, expected to be on that in that bullpen at least. Bullpen, I think the only really good piece that they have is Raisel Iglesias. Bummer's been a nice piece over the years, but other than that, I think you're hoping for some good performances out of Pierce Johnson and some of these younger players as well. They're going with kind of a youth movement at the back end of their rotation. They're going to have to with the funds issue that they are having, but we shall see. Willard, do you think the Astros sign Alex Verdugo? I would like them to. I hope they do. Do I think they actually do in reality? Probably not, because their hands are a little bit tied financially. But if they can put the right squeeze on him, maybe they can prove, or they can show him, hey, you might have to sign for a little bit less with us. As far as we'll probably sign you as a minor league deal, invite to spring training. If you make it out of camp, we'll pay you $2.5 million. Whereas if he goes to a team on another club, maybe he gets $4 million, so isn't guaranteed the playing time there. So maybe the Astros could do something like that to make sure he gets on that roster there. Again, you look at the injured list. This is a star-studded list here. Ronald Acuna Jr., Spencer Strider, and Joe Jimenez all out to start the season. We'll see, when these guys ultimately make it back as well. In their minor leagues, they got a couple of guys, veterans at the backup catcher spot that I think have a chance to make it out of spring training. We're talking Kurt Casale, Sandy Leon. They're expecting Drake Baldwin to get some run, a younger player, third-round pick from a few years ago for the Atlanta Braves if Thromp doesn't cut it at the big league level. First base, they did sign Garrett Cooper to a non-roster invitee deal, minor league deal. I like that addition for them. Gives them some insurance in case of an Olsen injury. Second base, nobody here really to write home about. Third base, another guy who's had some experience at the MLB level. If they have injury issues, Charles LeBlanc. So they are covering themselves in spring training, allowing those guys to naturally get warm, etc. as they get closer to opening day. No need to overuse these guys in spring training when you don't have to. Also give them a little bit of competition to make sure that they're sharp when you get to opening day. In the outfield, they do have a couple of guys with major league experience, Eli White and Jake Marisnick. Again, kind of insurance policies in case they do have injury issues. In addition to Ronald Acuna, Marisnick would be more of the defensive guy along with Eli White. And then they have some prospects that they could go to as well. On the pitching side, A.J. Smith-Shawver, is one of their depth options that they have. They're expecting about 75 innings according to Fangraphs. That sounds about right. Bryce Elder has seen his star rise and fall with the Atlanta Braves. They kind of saw how effective he was early in his tenure with the Braves, and then he really got lit up towards the end of the year. As more people got exposed to his pitches. They're expecting about 50 innings out of him. So a little bit of experience, and they got Chad Cole to kind of give them some experience if they need a veteran in that starting situation there as well. On the relief front, They got a couple of guys that might jog your memory as far as players from years gone by. Jake Diekman is in the minor league system here. Jordan Weems, Chasen Shreves, among a few others as well. So overall, they got some good depth in the minors to kind of keep things competitive in camp. I love that going into a spring training for any club. So hopefully that'll push the Atlanta Braves to be a little bit more sharp than, say, if they didn't have that same level of competition there in their own house to go into the year. So overall, I like where they're at as far as a team. I think they're very thin, though, on the pitching front. They're relying on a lot of youth in that starting rotation and in that bullpen. That could lead to trouble, especially if one of their starting pitchers goes down once again. Looking at the prospects for the Atlanta Braves, they only have 2 in the top 100. Drake Baldwin is their catcher, AAA guy. He's probably going to be at the big league level at some point. Cam Caminetti is going to be a little while to go until he's at the big league level. As far as their prospects overall, just so you can kind of see what their trends are at right now. A couple of guys have obviously graduated off this list from last year. J.R. Ritchie is one guy I'm thinking is going to have a big year in the minors this year, could really elevate his status, a former first-round pick. I'm expecting big things there. But look at all the talent here. They have a lot of guys that are close to MLB ready, and then everybody else is A-ball. And so a lot of the guys that are already at MLB level, etc., are already on the team or close to it, that aren't necessarily going to change the dynamic of this roster. The real chance that they have to really develop is these guys that are in A-ball, double A, those types of players, and that's their next wave of talent coming to the big league level. We'll see if the Braves can embrace that, or if they're going to have to trade it to get some solid options in there at the major league level because they didn't do enough shopping in free agency. Both of those options, you like having the prospects work for you, but if you have to use them because you didn't exhaust enough financial resources in the offseason to solve some of your issues, that could hurt you a little bit more long-term than just spending the money. So as far as the payroll for this club, the Atlanta Braves are pretty well locked up with a lot of their long-term talent. Riley, Olson, Ronald Acuna, Jurickson Profar, Sean Murphy, Spencer Strider, Ronaldo Lopez, Michael Harris, all signed to longer-term deals. Guys that are going to be coming off the books at the end of this year, Raisel Iglesias, kind of seen it as a contract dump at the time whenever the Atlanta Braves did acquire him. Braves took a chance at getting a decent closer at the time who was having some struggles. That was on a big contract with the LA Angels. They took advantage of it and got that deal done. $16 million, though, is a lot for a guy that, while he does a nice job for the Atlanta Braves, you'd think you'd want a little bit more for the money that you're spending on that level of player. Now, Marcell Ozuna, I thought was going to be a player that was, well overpaid, but he certainly changed that around last year. He was really solid for them offensively when some of their bats were quiet, especially to start the season. I think he might have parlayed this into a multi-year extension here. But again, he's 34. He'll be 35 at the end of this deal. Maybe it'll only be a 2-year deal with, $32 million, something like that, to keep him around the ball club. But I think that's a player they should be trying to re-sign this spring training season, see if they can get him at a number that they like. But as we go down, you can see how they got a lot of guys, pre-arb, etc. But right now they're sitting at, after you get luxury tax estimations in there, sitting at about $230. So they got about $11 million to go before they get to the luxury tax threshold. They don't want to get that close, though. According to multiple reports this offseason, including reports from Atlanta Braves beat reporter Mark Bowman, said that they don't necessarily want to go above $230. Well, they're right at it right now, and I don't think they're going to spend much more in free agency. The Braves are one team that is said to be looking for some starting pitching. That reporting come from John Heyman today in his report on Bleacher Report. But I don't think they're willing to spend big dollars on it at all. They're not going to sign one of these guys to a guaranteed deal of like $5 million, which is what Andrew Heaney got. It sounds like finances are really tight right now for the Atlanta Braves for what they're wanting to do. So a non-roster invitee, minor league deal with maybe $1 million, maybe $2 million based on performance could be in the offing here. I think getting an innings-eating veteran type like a Kyle Gibson, a Lance Lynn would be a nice fit for this rotation overall. But wins of this offseason, the biggest win to me has to be Jurickson Profar and getting those guys back healthy at some point during the year. Jurickson Profar, though, I think is really going to be a difference maker for this ball club, both from a leadoff perspective, but also the versatility that he brings to this ball club. And as an insurance policy at shortstop, he can fill so many holes on this roster. He is the perfect signing for them. Really happy they got him. He was one of my favorite players, one of my favorite prospects the Rangers have had in recent memory. Rangers ultimately, I believe, handled him very, very poorly, and I'm just glad to see him finally get paid, and I wish him all the best out there in Atlanta. But I think that's the absolute win of the offseason. mistake of the offseason is not adding another starting pitcher, not finding a way to offload a little bit of salary here to get them another starting pitcher, but they need some more depth in that rotation. Bullpen, they could always do that with the non-roster invitee guys. Maybe Jake Diekman steps up, maybe Chasen Strebe steps up, maybe they bring in another guy who gets DFA'd from another club after spring training is over. All kinds of ways you can add bullpen help, but one way I thought they really should have addressed, or one thing they really should have addressed on this team was that starting staff. They're going with a youth movement, and it better work out, because if it doesn't, Spencer Strider or Chris Sale struggle to begin the year, or not quite as crisp as they usually are. This is a team that could very easily find itself on the outside of the playoff picture looking in. As far as holes left on this roster, like I said, we're still looking at that starting staff, but they don't have a whole lot of money to spend here. So if they're going to add, it's probably going to be as a non-roster invitee, minor league type of a situation. But let's say, for the argument's sake, that they want to do something bigger, which has been their argument all offseason long, is that if they're going to bring in a starting pitcher, they want it to be a better option than what they already have. Fine, so be it, but you got to be willing to spend in order to get it done. So let's go ahead and make a trade here for the Atlanta Braves for some starting pitching. We'll do a two-team trade, just kind of keep it simple. The one thing I want to start with the Atlanta Braves is guys that are on a one-year deal that are making a little bit of money that they need to offload some salary. Because again, they're not looking to add money here. So maybe Pierce Johnson could be traded to another club in exchange for some level of a starting pitcher. That would hurt your bullpen, but again, like I said, bullpen guys are usually a dime a dozen. If you offload Pierce Johnson, maybe you take back a negative asset from another club that at least would give you some starting pitching. So what are some teams that are looking to offload some starters? Well, the first one that comes to mind is the Arizona Diamondbacks. And to me, this would be a great trade for both clubs. We'll start with the Diamondbacks. What player do you think I'm going to put in here? I think you guys can already guess it. Jordan Montgomery. You put in Jordan Montgomery into this deal. He's making $22 million. Obviously, way too much money for the Atlanta Braves to be able to afford. But remember, we're sending out $7 million with Pierce Johnson. And if the rumors are true that Arizona is looking to eat about $15 million of this deal, that leaves about $7 million left on Montgomery's deal that the Atlanta Braves would then have to pay. So say you include the 15 mil, we'll go ahead and do 16 just so it's nice, easy math as far as the 7. We send it to the Atlanta Braves. Okay? So there you go. Now you have a positive value of 5.3. Now, the Atlanta Braves don't have a deep farm system. They're not going to give up a whole heck of a lot from their farm system to be able to make an addition to their rotation. So what else could they do here? We're looking around a $6 million player, somewhere in that range. You could go with just one piece, Alvarez, etc. You could even include an Arcia, who hasn't been a great fit right now, but he's making $4 million. Maybe you do something along those lines and move Profar over there permanently to shortstop. I don't think they would do that to their major league roster. So where else could they go to make this trade happen? Davis Daniel, one of their depth starting pitching options, could be one of those guys. But again, only at 1.7, not a deal does this make here. So I think you're going to have to go a little bit richer here, either with one of the prospects or with somebody off of the major league roster. Now, the Diamondbacks are pretty well set offensively on their roster. I think bullpen is where they're looking to add right now. But none of those pieces really fit. Dylan Lee, I suppose, could be the guy. That'd be two guys out of your bullpen. That'd mean a couple of your guys that are non-roster invitees would have to make it. You're talking a Jake Diekman probably would make the roster at that point. Maybe a Chasen Strebe, maybe a Jordan Weems. But I think they'd probably get a few guys off of the free agent market as well. But let's say they go that route and they decide to give up a couple of relief pitchers. Now, the Diamondbacks already have some pretty good options there, but if they wanted to add a little bit more competition for that bullpen, they could go that route. So, 4 years of Dylan Lee. Ian Anderson doesn't really do it financially either. And you're not giving up any of those valuable pieces. Look at all the value that they have on Michael Harris. Perdomo makes a little sense. They got some controllable relievers, I will say that. Let's say they throw in Dylan Lee. I'm just throwing it in there for now. They're still getting too much value if you're the Braves. Doesn't make too much sense there. So, in order for it to make sense, they would probably have to give up one of their starting pitching prospects, which I really don't think they want to do. Might be just a little bit too much of a salary for them to bring in. So let's leave the idea of Pierce Johnson being the one piece going out to save them some money. Where else could they go to look for some starting pitching? Guys that could be available, easily had. Yankees, you could do it for Stroman. That would make some sense there. Pierce Johnson goes there to help out the bullpen. Yankees send Stroman to the Braves along with I don't think you'd include 8 or 16 mil. I think on that deal he's making 18. If you get him to eat say 11 of that, where would that leave this trade? Need to include 4 more going to the Yankees if you're the Braves. So at 4 more, you could probably package together a couple of these pieces here, like a Davis Daniel. But again, look how quickly it drops off entirely. Oh, I'm on the major side of things. Let me go to the all. I was wondering why it dropped off so quickly there. Perdomo, Hackenberg. Something along those lines. Maybe you only eat $9 million of that to make it a fair deal. Let's go with somebody who's not making a whole lot of money, that you're just offloading the deal entirely for and getting a decent starter back making very little coin. So, let's see here. Who's not making a lot of money? Red Sox have some guys that could be there, but I don't think they're looking to trade them away. Rays, they're not going to trade you a cheap starting pitcher. Padres could fit the description. Nationals have a guy or two. A's don't have a lot of starting pitching either. Let's go with the Angels. We're going to take out the cash on this deal. We're going to go over to the Angels, the starting pitchers in the majors. Tyler Anderson could be one piece that would fit, give them some innings. I like the idea of Kyle Hendricks quite a bit. Let's say you do Tyler Anderson. That adds a little bit too much salary, though. Cardinals. How much value does Eric Fetty have? I'm guessing too much. 15? Yeah, way too much. Sonny Gray making too much money. Steven Matz. That could work. Give you somebody at least for a depth option in that rotation. But again, is that the right way to go if you're the Braves? Is that a better option than going the young route? Probably not. Blue Jays. Now, here's where you have some starting pitchers that would be a decent fit. But I'm not sure cost-wise it would make a whole lot of sense. Alek Manoah could be a nice fit there. Yorel Rodriguez could be one. Gosman's got too much value. Barrios could be a very interesting fit. I would really like him both in Toronto and in Atlanta. I think the only issue for him has always been the long ball. Otherwise, he's a really good strikeout pitcher. He limits, contact in general. But when he does give up contact, it goes a long way. And when he's not right, he's not exactly in the strike zone either. But he's signed for 4 years. He's making, roughly 21 mil per season? Let's say he goes to the Braves, gives them somebody in that rotation that would be a solid option for them. Obviously, you're going to have to include some cash in this. So say they include, 25 mil in this deal. That'd be a big cash incentive going the other way. That's not a bad trade. I want to look at his. I want to look at his contract though for the Blue Jays. What is his salary this year, and what is he making? Oh no, wrong one. This is the one I needed. Toronto. Barrios is making $18 million this year. So basically you'd pay his entirety of his salary this year. You'd have $7 million to play with that you could put towards his 26 salary, where his salary balloons in 27 and 28 to $25 million, and then he's a free agent in 29. That's not a bad addition there if you go with Jose Barrios. Bassett is in the final year of his deal. Welcome back, D-Rod. Try Luis Castillo. I thought about that one, but I think he's making too much money for it to make sense for the Atlanta Braves. They're literally operating on a shoestring budget. We're talking like less than $1 million that they're looking to add in payroll. So the thought process of this trade is to offload the $7 million that's being made by Pierce Johnson and going with one of the younger guys out of the bullpen or with one of the non-roster invitees in the bullpen, saving some money back there and using that $7 million of Pierce Johnson for a starting pitcher to give them some more depth in that starting rotation. I think Jose Barrios would probably slot in as their number 4 starter right now. And if he's right, then he's probably a number 2. But when he's not, he's probably number 5. But I think, everyday rotation, I'd probably slot him as the number 4 on this Braves team. Looking at their depth and their starting staff right now, to me, Spencer Strider, of course, is still going to come back at some point. How many innings can you get out of him remains to be seen. But looking at this rotation, Chris Sale, an unbelievable season last year, no doubt about it. Ronaldo Lopez, same thing. But can you get those results to be replicated this year? That's where I have a worry there. And along with Spencer Strider, you got 3 young guys in that rotation. I think Schwellenbach's probably going to be the best of that bunch. They have really high hopes for Grant Holmes. And if not now, win for Ian Anderson. I guess that's the thought process there. They have a couple of guys that they can go to in the minors, but nobody I'm looking at Jose Barrios and saying he gives us the innings that these guys have not been able to. So I would like a pitcher like a Jose Barrios on the Atlanta Braves, and it would give them somebody for the future as well in case Chris Sale does decide to hang it up if he does have his struggles this year. But you asked about Chris Bassett. He is in the final year of his deal. Just kind of show you what his numbers are at. 1 year, $22 million. In order for this deal to make sense, you'd have to eat about, $15 million of that, and then you're looking $15 million positive value you'd have to send out if you're Atlanta. You don't have that kind of depth to really play with on the financial front there as far as prospects to be able to eat that much salary if you're the Blue Jays. Now for Jose Barrios, such a negative asset here, just offloading the future years of that deal is the benefit there, and you're getting a bullpen piece right now this year in Pierce Johnson. I think that'd be good for their bullpen, and they still need some starting pitching. I think this move would probably have to be in tandem with them adding another starting pitcher. The Blue Jays are said to be looking to add some starting pitching, not lose it. So I wonder if they're looking to kind of redistribute the money a little bit here. That's what they'd be doing with Barrios and Pierce Johnson, saving themselves long-term money, so maybe they can go after a Dylan Cease and then sign him to an extension as well. That might be the way they try to convince Vladimir Guerrero Jr. to sign there long-term. Jose Barrios, I thought would have been a great trade at the time. Ultimately, it has not worked out for them. Welcome in, Lucas. How you doing today? Doing pretty good. We've done quite a few team previews for the 2025 season, so if you want to watch those back, we got quite a few of them done today. They're all up on our channel, so be sure to hit that like and subscribe. I'm going to go ahead and validate this trade and post it. I kind of like this trade for both sides. Braves basically get a starting pitcher that they need and save the money on Pierce Johnson's deal in order to be able to do it. For the Blue Jays, they still are going to need some starting pitching, but they add to their bullpen, and they get out of the future money here on Jose Barrios. Not a bad deal, but this would have to be in conjunction with the Blue Jays adding more starting pitching. So again, this might not be the perfect option for the Braves, but if this deal came to fruition, I think it would be a great trade for them to be able to make. Now, where will they finish in 2025? The Atlanta Braves, let's see where they finished last year. Last year they finished 89 and 73. Pretty good record, but again, look at how close that division or that wild card race was. Diamondbacks basically lose it on a tiebreaker. So, is this a team better than where they were last year? Rotation, I would probably say no. I think they still need to add more. Lineup, I'd say they're probably a little bit better. I think they could still use more improvements there if they just allow their better players to play rather than having Arcia in the lineup. I think having Profar take over at shortstop at later points in the year when Acuna is healthy and the rest of the guys are going, I think that'll work for them in the long run. But is Atlanta going to win the division? No. Is Atlanta going to win the first wild card? No. Are they going to be in contention for a wild card, maybe the second or third wild card? Absolutely. I'm going to go ahead and pencil them in as a wild card team, kind of in that 5th, 6th spot, which was where they were last year. I think they'll finish very likely in about the same spot where they did last year as well. I'll go ahead and give them one extra win this year, just because I think the offense started off so poorly last year. It's going to do a little bit better this year. And getting the reinforcements health-wise with Ronald Acuna and Spencer Strider, I think eventually push this team to that 90-win threshold. So I think they're going to be right there. I think the Mets are going to be a little bit better. I think they will add some starting pitching. But even so, I think the Mets lineup, top to bottom, has a little bit better top-end talent. I think the rotation in Atlanta is slightly better. Not that there are any world beaters there, unfortunately. I think Chris Sale, being a Cy Young Award winner, really elevates this rotation above where it normally would be. Otherwise, I think they have some real inexperience at the back end of that rotation that could cost them come playoff time. So we'll see what they do the rest of the way. You think the Bravos win 95 games automatic if they're healthy? If healthy, yes, and that would assume a full year healthy for Ronald Acuna. I'd be right there with you. But since he's going to miss about a month, I think that's going to cost him a game or two. And then, of course, you never know what's going to happen with that rotation. And that's where I have the biggest issue, is that they didn't address that starting rotation enough. They seem very confident in Grant Holmes, and they got to give Ian Anderson one more shot at it. Because, again, top prospect, he's got to either make it or break it this year. So one way or another, we'll have an answer as to whether Ian Anderson is part of the long-term future of the Atlanta Braves or not. But I'll say they finish right at 90 wins. Expectations for this team, I'll go ahead and say this team, like I said, it's going to be around 90 wins. For the roster itself, though, I think we're going to have a really nice year out of Jurickson Profar. He changed his swing a little bit, changed his mechanics as to what he was doing at the plate, and it really paid dividends last year, and I'm expecting that to continue. I expect Austin Riley to get off to a better start, Matt Olson to get off to a better start. I'm expecting a little bit of a regression anyway from Marcell Ozuna, who was that good for them last year offensively, but they need to get more production out of Albies, Harris, etc. in order for this lineup to really flourish there. Big trades, maybe they make a big one, like a Jose Barrios type of a trade. I know they were said to be interested in Dylan Cease as well. I doubt that one happens, just because the price on Dylan Cease is quite high at the moment. I don't think they really have the pieces that they can afford to be offloading that talent overall. Will they make a big trade for a Vladdy Guerrero Jr.? I doubt it. Maybe they go, say if Acuna goes down again due to injury, maybe they go after a bigger outfielder like Kyle Tucker if he is available at that time. Lucas, if fully healthy, I have them as World Series contenders. I think they are massively better than the Mets and Phillies. I really think they would cakewalk the division. For me, clearly the best NL East team. I mean, they're doing it on... Okay, so I understand your comment, Lucas. I would say I would agree, but that's assuming literally everything breaks right. Chris Sale is back to being Cy Young Chris Sale once again. Ronaldo Lopez duplicates what he did last year. Spencer Strider hits the ground running, and they easily get to that 95-win threshold. I think the Mets are going to be above that 95-win threshold as well. Phillies, I think if they can get that clubhouse shaken up a little bit, get Trey Turner being back to being the Los Angeles Dodgers version of Trey Turner, then I think they're going to be a better team than what they were last year. I don't like their offseason moves, but they got to hope for internal improvement there in Philadelphia. But for Atlanta, I mean, this is a team that did one move to me that really changed their offseason, which was Jurickson Profar. Other than that, they basically have the same team that they had last year for the most part. They still need some starting pitching for me. If they add some starting pitching, I think things will go a lot better for them. Maybe even push the Mets or the Phillies for, top honors in the division. But for me, everything would have to break right for that to happen. And when have we seen the Atlanta Braves have that kind of good luck? I mean, Ronald Acuna has been lost for the season, twice now in the last 3-4 years? Spencer Strider goes down with a big injury last year, cost him basically the entirety of the season and some of this year as well. When have we seen the Atlanta Braves catch a break from an injury standpoint? But I'll go with your premise there. Say they're fully healthy. Could they finish with 95 wins? Absolutely. Could they win the division? right there with you. But that's, again, assuming a lot of ifs, and I don't think all of them are going to break the Atlanta Braves' way. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm a Braves fan, grew up watching TBS, watching the Atlanta Braves, Chipper Jones, Andrew Jones, Ryan Klesko, Javi Lopez, Kevin Millwood, Greg Maddux, John Smoltz, Tom Glavine, Wally Joyner, Terry Mulholland, Brett Boone, Andres Galarraga. Loved him as a first baseman. Big Cat. He was fantastic. But the Atlanta Braves, I think, are a team that's doing things with a very limited range of, or very limited variation in what they can expect out of their roster. That they're basically doing a tight wire or a high wire act in order to make this thing work this year. And I just think they need more depth overall. I think they need more performance around those guys because they're doing it with a really solid lineup. I will give them that. They do have some depth options that I do like as well. They've given them some nice competition in spring training, like I mentioned. But I do have my concerns about that starting staff. Lucas, I mean, they had the worst injury luck ever last season. Even if they have half the injuries from last season, it's an easy 6 games. I'm not counting on it being a half, though. I'm still expecting a significant portion of the season lost due to injury or poor performance or regression from some of their top talent. And when it's all done in the wash, I think they finish right about where they were last year. Now, is that a bad spot? No. But is it enough for them to win the division? To me, probably not. So I'm going to say they're just on the outside of the division looking in, but they do get a wild card spot. I think they finish a little bit short of the NLCS once again. I do think there are a couple other teams that are going to have some better pitching staffs that they're going to run into a little bit of a buzzsaw once they get to October. Now, if they get Chris Sale to be Cy Young level Chris Sale and Spencer Strider looks back to being an ace level pitcher, I mean, he is a 3-pitch mix type of a pitcher anyway, so if one of those pitches has started to regress, that really means his drop-off could be rapid this year, especially if his arm isn't fully recovered from those injuries, that he may not be able to throw the pitch in the same way or whatever the case may be. That's a lot of ifs to do with this team, and that's why I still think they need to add some more depth more than anything else. They are looking for some starting pitching right now on the cheap, minor league deal with an invite to spring training. But if we were doing a trade, I like the idea of a veteran starter to come in and really eat up some innings. If they go free agency, maybe a Lance Lynn, Kyle Gibson type to kind of give them some insurance and length out of that starting staff. As far as a grade for the offseason, I'll give them a B+. Like I said, I really love the addition of Jurickson Profar. I think they did a great job with their minor league rosters as far as their invites to spring training, kind of keeping that competition high in spring training. Really love that for a club like the Atlanta Braves. But again, a lot of this season really rides on whether or not Acuna and Strider are back to being their normal selves. I think they will be. I have no reason to suspect that they wouldn't. But again, it's a big risk and unknown that we don't know heading into the season. We don't know how many games it's going to cost them at the beginning of the year because they won't have those guys available either. But I do absolutely love the signing of Jurickson Profar, so we'll see how they perform. Growth and surprises. Obviously, Profar made some changes to his offense last year. I think keeping that same approach this year is going to bode well for him. You got to hope for a rebound of a year from Sean Murphy. Same for Ozzie Albies. You got to hope a little bit better for Orlando Arcia, but if he continues to struggle, maybe Profar takes his job after Acuna comes back. But I would say there's some good depth options there on the position player side now there. But as far as starting pitching, a lot of this is going to be done on a high wire. They got a lot of older guys that are trying to come back from injury or have dealt with injuries in the past. They got some guys that they stretched out to being a starter last year. We'll see how their arm responds to another year at the big league level, throwing 150, 160 innings. They're expecting Chris Sale to throw 182. That seems a little bit lofty given his age and track record with injuries. Ronaldo Lopez, at 31 years old, they're expecting 173 innings out of him. Only a year removed from being a bullpen arm. So again, just a lot of innings they're expecting out of those two that I'm not sure that they're going to get to those heights as far as innings pitched. As far as other surprises, growth on this roster, I think a lot's going to be based on what they do with this bullpen. If they add some pieces, if they trade out some others, they have some good depth, like I said, going into spring training to give themselves a healthy competition as they prepare for the 2025 season. Ceiling for this team, let's say everything does break correctly, just like you say there, Lucas. I think best case scenario, they win the division. They win, I think best case scenario is like 102, 103 wins. If everything absolutely goes swimmingly with Ronald Acuna, he's back to being MVP level Ronald Acuna. We get Cy Young version of Chris Sale again. We get a Cy Young contender in Strider as well. I think that's a lot of big ifs to put on this team. So that's why I'm expecting around that 89, 90 win threshold and being in that wild card hunt. Now, as far as floor for this team, say all those issues that I mentioned come to pass and they really struggle. Acuna doesn't look right coming back from injury. Same for Strider. Sale struggles after really recapturing his youth last year with the Atlanta Braves, and he struggles at times this year. Ronaldo Lopez, because of all the innings last year, starts to have some arm fatigue, gets into some injury issues. Say the young guys don't work out. A lot of variables on this roster. And then, of course, that doesn't mention any of the hitting here. If Orlando Arcia continues to have a poor offensive season, if they get off to another slow start offensively, where could this team ultimately end up? Well, last year they finished with 89 wins. I think this could be at the lowest, probably an 83-win team, but still above 500. They're still a good roster. I think they have too much talent to lose more than 81 games, and I just don't see that happening. So we'll see how the rest of this season really shakes out for them, but to me, they really needed to address that starting staff, and they didn't do enough, in my estimation, to really give them enough length in that rotation. But good news is there are still some options out there that could fill that void. We'll see if they go that direction. Alrighty, appreciate you guys joining us this evening for our 2025 season preview for the Atlanta Braves. We will continue our series tomorrow. We'll go on with the Blue Jays. I know we got quite a few Toronto Blue Jays fans with us over the last since we really started this channel. Mark, I know you're one of them. So we will have your Blue Jays tomorrow night. We'll probably start a little bit earlier than we usually do because I'm going to try to do 2 season previews tomorrow. We'll do the Blue Jays first, and then we'll do the Tampa Bay Rays second. So we shall see. At this point last year, Atlanta was the clear favorite. Yes, because the Mets were in a retooling, rebuilding situation. They did not just add Juan Soto last year at this time. Philadelphia, they had a really good roster, made some nice moves last year, but they still had some bad contracts on their books, and they still have bad contracts on their books. Trey Turner didn't work out as well as they had hoped, and that's why they're not necessarily seen as the favorite there. They're really top-heavy with their pitching staff with Wheeler and Nola. They didn't get enough production out of Taijuan Walker, so that's why they make the trade of for Jesus Luzardo. I don't think it's going to move the needle as far as they're going to need it to go. Atlanta just won 104 games like a season before this. I really don't think it's out of the realm of possibility to imagine some people play more games. I agree with you there. I do think there is some loftiness that we could expect from them, but they're just a year older. Where's the variance in as far as the new blood on this team? I guess the variance would be the younger players in that rotation, but that's the scarier spot for me. I would rather have younger players in my lineup and require the older players to really be more productive in that rotation. Older meaning more experienced in that 26 to 30-year-old range to kind of really have a solid rotation. The lineup really is where they have a lot of their talent, a lot of their money tied up, but that rotation to me is where I'd have my biggest worries. But again, I love the addition of Jurickson Profar. I think he's going to do perfect in that lineup. I think he's going to be everything that they could possibly have hoped for, and really hoping for the best for the Atlanta Braves. Like I said, one of my favorite teams when I was a kid, so they still have a soft spot in my heart. But we'll see what their season looks like. I think more realistically, we're looking more at a wild card. But if things break the way that you're hoping they do, Lucas, maybe they win the division as well. Once they get to October, though, I do think the Dodgers are a significantly better team, both in that rotation and in that lineup. I think they have some really good options in that lineup for the Braves. They're probably a deeper lineup overall than the Dodgers, but I think the Dodgers have a little bit better top-end talent with Ohtani, Freeman, Betts when they're healthy. Now, Acuna, Riley, Olsen, Ozuna, no slouches there, but again, you're counting on the health of those players as well, and I would rather count on the health of Shohei Ohtani because we've seen him, even with Tommy John, still go out there and perform at an MVP level offensively. So if he does have issues coming back to pitch this season and he only is able to DH, I still think the lineup would be a little bit better for the Dodgers. But overall, I think they're in a good spot this year. The Braves are. If they things break their way, like I said, they could very easily win the division. Lucas, I'm hoping the Phillies win the division. I have a soft spot for them. I hear you. They're a good team. I like Trey Turner quite a bit. If we get Trey Turner from the World Baseball Classic or the after the trade to the Los Angeles Dodgers, Phillies could very easily be at the top of this division because they have a significantly better rotation than the other teams in this division outside of maybe Miami if they're healthy. Alcantara could be a very interesting trade piece at the deadline. Maybe one of these teams decides to step out and get him at that point. But we shall see. Appreciate you guys joining us tonight. Be sure to check out some of the other 2025 season preview videos that we have already made. And we'll be live for you guys again tomorrow night. We'll do 2 lives. We'll do them back to back. So for those of you hoping to catch up on where the Blue Jays are and the Rays, we will have those for you tomorrow. On Friday, we will be doing the Guardians and Twins. And then Saturday, we are doing the Marlins, Tigers, Yankees, and Padres, I believe. Sunday, we'll finish out the rest of the league. We'll get the Texas Rangers on Saturday. So hopefully you guys, or excuse me, on Sunday, excuse me. That'll be the last team we do on Sunday. So be sure to join us for those as well. Only thing is the Eagles fans mixed in. True. I hear you there. I think Philly is the best rotation in the league is after the Dodgers. Dodgers, to me, just have so many good starting pitchers, great starting pitchers, ace-level starting pitchers. I love Zach Wheeler as a starting pitcher. I think he's very underrated outside of Philadelphia, and he doesn't get enough flowers for what he really does there for them. But we'll see how the year goes for Philly. We'll see how it goes for Atlanta. And appreciate you guys joining us. Be sure to hit that like and subscribe. Follow us on X at Upside Ascend and on Facebook at Upside Sports Network. Y'all have a great evening out there, and stay safe. We'll see you guys tomorrow when we do the 2025 season preview for the Toronto Blue Jays and the Tampa Bay Rays. This has been your 2025 season preview for the Atlanta Braves. My name is Michael here at the Upside Sports Network. We'll see you guys again tomorrow night.